AGI? More like NAGI, am I right? No one. I'm Ray Myers. Welcome to Craft versus Cruft. Now, you may have heard that yesterday Sam Altman was removed by the board of directors of OpenAI, the industry leader in large language models. And this is a very surprise move because arguably the company is at near peak public credibility before this kind of surprise move. They just had Dev Day last week, which some people were disappointed by as being kind of evolutionary rather than revolutionary. But by and large, people were very happy with all the improvements that they rolled out. So as I say, just like practically at the peak of public faith in OpenAI leadership, you have this surprise move. Sam Altman ousted as CEO, leaving the CTO Mira Murati as the new interim CEO. And also a fellow co-founder, Greg Brockman, has stepped down in wake of the news. That is maybe an impetus for the conversation I want to have right now, but I don't have a lot of commentary on this move itself because we don't know why. Like the statement made by the board was a total non-statement. It certainly was derogatory. It hinted that some misconduct had occurred, some dishonest communication maybe, but we don't really have any details. So I cannot say if I agree or disagree with this decision. If anything new has come out, maybe you'll catch up to it. Basically, where we're going is I have no opinion about whether or not they should have fired the CEO of OpenAI because I don't have any facts there. But I do think we collectively should fire AGI itself as a term, maybe as a goal. Like, this is just not the kind of thing that we should be trying to build. I don't think it is even coherent to think about how you can build it. So I'm not coming at this from a doomer point of view, which believes, maybe it is possible to build it, but if we don't do it just right, we could, extinct all of humanity. A lot of people think that right now. That's not what I would argue. I think it is just not a coherent endeavor. It will not succeed. That is why I'm not worried about it. That said, if you believe OpenAI in the worries about it, then I think other things that they're doing make almost no sense. I almost think that even people who believe in it don't believe in it. It's very confusing. Let me show you what I mean. So, for instance, we have Altman shortly after his congressional testimony. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside things like pandemic and nuclear war. So you take that as not just the position of some people somewhere, but the position of the head of OpenAI that there is, by creating AGI, artificial general intelligence, a significant risk of extincting the entire human race. But also OpenAI's purpose is to create AGI. They say that in their literature, in their charter, we want to create AGI that benefits humanity. We think this thing, that AGI is an extinction risk, but also our whole purpose is we want to create it. Anything else is out of scope for our company. And I guess the idea is it's maybe inevitable that someone's going to create it. So we got to create it in a good way before someone creates it in a bad way. Or maybe it's that even though it's an extinction risk, it's also a potential to create great benefit. And we're doing some sort of Bayesian ridiculousness. I don't know. But this is nutty to me. What else does AGI do? Well, apparently it breaks capitalism, right? He says, if AGI really truly fully happens, he can imagine all the ways that it breaks capitalism. So this is gonna, potentially usher in a completely new societal structure. Now, commonly it's pointed out, AGI doesn't have a generally accepted definition, so we don't even know what we're talking about. But when we're talking about OpenAI, we know how they define it. OpenAI defines AGI as a highly autonomous system that is performing better than a human in most economically valuable work. So they are very clear about what that means. It is kind of an ambiguous, cure what ails you definition, but at least they're clear about how general it is. Other people think an AGI maybe is akin to like a superintelligence, like it could solve literally any problem, which is a little stronger of a statement. Other people say it is just something that has, a generalizable intelligence. There are people who say AGI is already here because LLMs are pretty versatile. So all over the map, right? You might think time to AGI is 0 and that we have it right now, or that the time is 18 months from now, which is often quoted, or you can think it's 50 years out, depending on just how strongly or weakly you're defining the term. But the multiple definitions is kind of its own problem. Let's take OpenAI's definition just at face value for the purposes of this discussion. So we want to do it. It might extinct humanity. It might break capitalism. All right. And the reason we're still doing it is because we're going to do it right. We're going to do it aligned. But also, these things are kind of hard to predict. They have emergent properties. So when asked about just this month what capabilities GPT-5 is likely to have, he said, until we go train the model, it's like a fun guessing game what it's going to be able to do. So I ask you, like, does this combination of behaviors, if taken at face value, make any sense? Like, do these beliefs fit? They've called for some regulation and oversight. It's widely speculated that their motivation for doing so is simply to give them an edge over other competitors. And, whether or not that's their motivation, that's going to be the result of them lobbying and being very influential in the regulation, is you're going to end up with regulation that benefits the Googles and OpenAIs over other companies, whether or not that's in the public interest, it might be. But right now we don't have any of that framework. There's no real oversight. There's just like, well, we trust you. And they're simultaneously saying, like, we think this could create utopia in almost so many words, or it could wipe out the entire human race. And what GPT-5 can or cannot do is a fun guessing game. We have not exactly no idea. I think they do have an idea of what would be in and out of scope. We're trying to predict the capabilities, but we don't really know what they're going to be. A lot of people are understandably alarmed by this combination of things. If you take them at face value, it doesn't alarm me because I just don't think it's true. It's not that they're willfully deceiving, but like, they're just in an environment, as any AI startup is, where they need to produce investor capital that is being driven by FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And they are very incentivized to keep the hype train going. And it so happens that an aspect of the hype train is this stuff is just so powerful that it could like blow up the earth tomorrow, that this thing could like escape from the machine and go make a super virus or whatever it is today. And it's like scary, but it's also really cool, right? Like, don't you want to buy stock in Skynet? But no, I don't think GPT-5 is going to be AGI. I don't think GPT-6 is going to be AGI. I don't think any LLM will meet their definition by itself. Maybe you think that's a very bold statement I'm not qualified to make. Well, Sam Altman, again, also agrees with me on that, like a year after Gary Marcus said it. Sam, earlier this month, speaking at Cambridge, said that he doesn't think LLMs are going to get us all the way to AGI or superintelligence. We need additional breakthroughs, not just language models. If you've been paying attention, this might not come as that much of a surprise to you because it is becoming clear that they have some capabilities they show signs of being able to train their way into better, and some where they just are going to hit a wall. Language models and even deep learning are not going to solve every conceivable type of problem. That's fine. They're still massively useful. We just need to discover the things that they're useful for and use them for that, and then figure out what other kinds of systems to integrate with. Like, relational databases are not disappointing to me because they cannot render images in a web browser. They're just not the kind of the system you use, for that component of your application. So we will eventually figure out where LLMs fit within your application. There's this idea that maybe we'll have other breakthroughs and we'll combine LLMs with them, and that will give us AGI. Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's an entire hypothetical. So I can't really respond to that yet. I think it is just as likely we're going to have an AI winter, as they are called, because it has happened twice already. Now, I'm picking on Sam a lot here, but he's just a representative sample. Everything that he has said, other people have said too. Like, let's take this, for example, which I've covered in a previous episode. I think it was LLMs are the new smart stupids. AI is going to enable the creation of enforcement of laws 1,000 times as complex as we have today. This is mostly a good thing. And it goes on to describe this sort of elaborate scenario in which AIs interview individuals to understand their specific needs, and then we create these gigantically complex laws that, because we have AI, we'll be able to enforce, and we'll be able to understand exactly how it's going to benefit everyone, and this is going to enable a much better society. So we're talking about like AI writing laws that only the AI can understand. Like, that is what is being proposed with a straight face here, right? And like, I'm picking on this random guy. Well, it's not a random guy, right? This is this CEO of Quora, which is a site I've often enjoyed, actually, and also is on the board of directors of OpenAI, right? So he is on that small panel that decided recently to oust Sam. I don't know which way he voted in that decision. Presumably we'll find out. So again, like, if I thought there was any credibility to this idea that we're, well on the road to building this AGI that's going to replace most economically valuable work, or reshape society, or possibly wipe us all out, and there's just this like coven of private citizens that are making decisions about how we progress here, like, I would be super alarmed. I just don't take this seriously at all. I think this is totally nutso. Sorry, Adam. And, it's totally possible that his point of view has evolved from this, or that he has a lot of other good reasons that I just don't understand why this is a reasonable thing to say. But I think we should be forgiving of people having, different viewpoints about this stuff, because, like, let's acknowledge how deeply confusing the current AI systems are. Like, LLMs are very impressive because we have never seen something that could manipulate language with that level of proficiency that didn't also have all the other cognitive capabilities that we have, right? So, when we see it, we just tend to assume that it's like all the other language using entities that we've interacted with, right? And it's just very much not. How do we account for the fact that, like, it can do things like pass the SAT and maybe bar exams and things like that? At first glance, you're going to think that means it can practice law, and you're going to start tweeting things like that. But it's the case that a human who can pass the bar exam can practice law. It is not necessarily the case that a neural network running on GPUs that can give answers to multiple choice questions based on its training set can also practice law. Because when we make a benchmark for humans, it already presupposes all the other capabilities we have. We don't need to test that every time. So I think this confusion, this disorientation we get when we see these uncanny valley systems that are coming out now, has created, a situation where we've got lots of smart, well-meaning people, some of them very powerful, with a lot of weird conclusions. And I'm a little concerned about that, because I think that the AI doomer, AI safety conversation is taking focus away from the AI ethics conversation that has existed as a field for years and needs to continue to. But I'm not as concerned as most people, because I think, as far as like these AGI concerns, there's just no powder in the grenade. We're going to use AI and computers and everything to hurt each other in all the normal ways we hurt each other, and we should be vigilant about that. But like, I'm not worried about it like jumping out of the machine one day and all this stuff that is being talked about. I think we need to address what is actually happening, because plenty is happening to marginalized people. Like, we need to listen to their concerns. So I'm quibbling with the term AGI. I know I've heard a lot of people who are newer to this just quibble with the term AI to begin with. Like, if it's not the full amount of intelligence, if it's not all of intelligence as we understand it, then why would we call it AI? Well, you're probably not going to win that one ultimately. Like, AI is a very entrenched term. It started in the 50s, right? So we've been working on this, not me specifically, but a lot of people have been working on this for 70 almost years. It has always been a moving target. It has always been a question of what are the cognitive tasks that we haven't already taught computers to do, and can we teach them to do some of them and make them a little bit more like, the best of what we can do and what they can do. A lot of progress was made, and you may not even think of a lot of the advances that came out of that as AI anymore. I was watching when Garry Kasparov played Deep Blue, won the first match, and then a few years later there was another match and he lost, and computers had overtaken the number one chess player. That was a huge moment. However, now, we might not even refer to a game engine as an AI, except maybe in a historical sense, because it's just a chess engine. We know the dynamics of that, churning through board states and evaluating them and so on and so forth. Recommendation engines are another example of something that came out of AI, right? So just the fact that you have Netflix recommendations of what movies you might like to watch, or what search results you might like, or, really big in advertising now, right? Recommendations were AI. Now they're just recommendation engines. They're something fairly mundane. We've processed them. There may be a time where we think of, that's just a language model, because it's just become so intuitive what it can and cannot do. But on the frontier is what we call AI. That's always what it has been. And so I think it'll continue to be a moving target, and that's just okay. It's the name of our pursuit for finding new kinds of things we can get machines to do. I'm not going to go into these, but there have been two major AI winters where funding kind of dried up because it was perceived that progress was gone, right? When I was in school, we thought neural networks were just dead. That was a cool idea in the 80s. Good at a few things, and it's not really panning out to be that important. And then they kind of figured out with some new algorithms and a lot more compute power and data how to make them much more broadly applicable. And neural networks, have had a huge comeback. So with the caveat of what it's really intended to mean, I do think AI is a legitimate term. AGI, again, I think not so much. If you want to hear some of the even more problematic than I've brought up angles fleshed out, I recommend Timnit Gebru's talk, Eugenics and the Promise of Utopia through AGI, and she unpacks what she calls the TaskReal bundle, which are, you've probably heard of some of these areas: transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, rationalism, cosmism, effective altruism, and long-termism, which are kind of this, closely related set of communities that are basically foretelling either a utopia or an apocalypse, like we saw earlier with OpenAI kind of taking both of those angles. She actually makes the case that this amounts to second wave eugenics, this direction of thinking. So that's kind of controversial, but I really think that her thoughts are worth looking at here. Something a little less extreme that she also says is something that I've been saying, which is that instead of AGI, we should be trying to build well-scoped systems. We should have very specific goals, not the goal of just make a system that can do anything. Now, some of these specifically scoped systems, we may find that they can be generalized, and that's great. But I don't think any of them are really going to generalize all the way that we're talking about. We'll see if I'm wrong or not. But what's being shipped today absolutely does not jive with the messaging that's been put out about what's around the corner. So let's be a little more honest. Yes to AI, no to AGI, no to superintelligence. Yes to defining and modeling your problem well, so you can create, reliable components that take their part of it and the components work together well in a system. Let's not think that some chatbot's going to come along and save you from having to design a system. That in my opinion, is a dead end. Certainly with current tools, possibly always. That's why my website is mender.ai and not we're all gonna die.ai, right? Or I don't need to program anymore because ChatGPT does it for me, or anything like that. So if you think that the capabilities are vastly different than I think, then you may think this is kind of small potatoes. Why am I even bothering with trying to get it to refactor legacy code? But I think in anything, the thing to do is to carve off a small little piece of the problem that we can do a demonstrably better job. Find, a part of our problem to address with that is causing a disproportionate amount of our pain. And that's how we're going to get the real wins. So let me know what you think. No, not everyone sees this one the same way. That's just fine. I'm sure you mean well. Gonna drop some links, and as Lao Tzu said, with patience, the most tangled cord may be undone. Thank you.